life, as you know, is very unpredictable. And our next speaker was actually someone who was very interesting, a very colorful character, a Mike Singh, who hails from Guyana in South America. Unfortunately, I don't know how many of you are aware, but there's a hurricane that has hit Florida and that part of US, and so all the flights have been cancelled and he has been unable to come. And so he has sent his apologies. I actually have some information that I could share with you, but in the interest of time, we have, Neil, are you ready to come on? Okay, he's ready. So I want to invite the next speaker after Mike, and if we have time, I'll go back to the Caribbean because there's a lot of very interesting information that I could share with you. And Neil is from a company called Comcraft. They have grown tremendously over the years, starting from Africa. I still remember when I went to Havana in 1991 for a conference. I was surprised to find that their company was in Havana, and I found out subsequently that they were dealing in sugar. So they have grown and diversified, and we are very fortunate that though they are a very low-profile company, they have been gracious enough to accept our invitation to come and share with us their perceptions of how they have grown in Africa and beyond, and what are the opportunities that exist in these places. May I call upon Neil Chandaria of the Comcraft Group.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be here. Mr. Praful Chandaria, who was supposed to be speaking today, unfortunately is not here as he has had to travel urgently. I'm his last-minute replacement, so I hope you'll bear with me. I do not have a formal presentation to provide to you, but I hope to provide you some insights into opportunities in Africa and the Middle East. First, some background on the Comcraft Group. Our forefathers migrated from Gujarat in India to Kenya almost 100 years ago. From very humble beginnings, through hard work and determination, we built a business in distribution and trade, and then expanded into industry. From a base in Kenya, the group had extended its activities all over East Africa by the 60s. That's Uganda, Tanzania, Congo, Ethiopia, Zambia. In the 70s, the group expanded further to West and North Africa, into countries like Nigeria, Ivory Coast, Cameroon, French Africa. With the end of apartheid in South Africa, we expanded further in the 90s to Southern Africa and also to the Middle East. We now have industrial operations processing steel, aluminum, plastics, and other materials in over 20 countries in Africa and the Middle East. In order to appreciate better the diaspora and its activities in Africa, maybe we can provide a little bit of background and history. India has had very strong trading links with the Middle East and Africa since many, many centuries. During the colonial era, there was a significant migration of Indians to Africa as traders, as well as to work in the plantations and government. Life was very tough under European domination, but there was political stability. Indian families did very well and built major businesses, such as the Madhwanis in Uganda and closer to home in Singapore, the Chandrais, who were very active in West Africa. In the 60s, with the wave of independence, there was strong optimism for future growth. Unfortunately, poor government policies, corruption, political instability, and war led to serious problems in the 70s and 80s. The Indian population, the Indian diaspora, was discriminated against, and in some of the countries, they were expelled and their assets were seized. Many Indians migrated once again, first from India to Africa, and then from Africa to Britain, as well as other more stable countries, to rebuild their future. However, from the 90s onwards, there has been significant political and economic improvement in the region. Today, there are about 2.5 million Indians settled in Africa, mostly in South Africa and Mauritius. Following the oil boom in the 70s, many Indians went to work in the Middle East, and there are now about 4 million Indians in the Middle East today, mostly on short-term contracts. This Indian diaspora provides a wealth of local knowledge, contacts, and expertise that investors can tap on. Africa and the Middle East offer compelling business opportunities. It has vast land area, huge natural resources, energy, minerals, water, and a growing population. Opportunities are available in various sectors. Sectors include oil and gas, minerals, metals, agricultural and agro-processing, infrastructure, that's telecoms, transport, power, housing, all types of infrastructure, health and education, as well as local industry to supply the local markets. Traditionally, the opportunities in Africa have been in commodities for the export markets. And this is the sector which has attracted the greatest interest in the last few years, following the recent commodity boom. Local markets are also offering interesting opportunities now, especially in the larger economies like South Africa, Egypt, Nigeria, and Saudi Arabia. Free trade agreements within many of these countries have also created larger markets like SADC in Southern Africa, COMESA in East and Central Africa, ECOWAS in West Africa, and the GCC in the Gulf region. Historically, investment from Africa has come from the West, and the colonial powers basically controlled all the local economies. However, in the last few years, there has been competing investment coming in from non-traditional sources like China and India, as well as from the Middle East and South Africa. Chinese business is largely driven by state-owned companies who have put a lot of effort and money into the resource sector and the construction industry. Very few Indian government companies have been involved in Africa, although ONGC has been quite active. More prominent from India have been the private sector corporates like Tata's, SR, the Mittals, Vedanta, who have been active in various sectors like oil, telecoms, steel, metals, minerals, and so on. Despite the improvement in recent years, it is still difficult to do business in Africa and the Middle East. There are still many hurdles, still many problems and issues. However, by working together with the local diaspora, who have a great deal of experience in managing the local situation and matters, it should be possible to take advantage of the many opportunities that are available in Africa and the Middle East. The risks of political and economic instability still remain, and these need to be carefully managed. Investors need to take a long-term view, be sensitive to local conditions, and promote development of the local communities. In conclusion, this is a brief, explanation, but I'm happy to take questions. In conclusion, Africa and the Middle East are now open and ready for business. Thank you.
As you may be aware, Senior Minister Goh Chok Tong has been making trips to Africa, and he's encouraging the Singapore businessmen to look at Africa more seriously. And we have already an existing Indian diaspora that can be tapped as business partners, and more recently China has also been quite active in Africa. So for those of you who are interested in Africa, we've just heard some very interesting points. Do you have any questions for Mr. Chandaria? Oh dear, David Livingstone was surprised when he went to Africa, and you seem to have apprehensions about Africa. Any questions? Yes, Mr. Moraes, you seem to have all the questions.
Again, I'm from Asian Channels, and I was told that Ghana is one of the countries in Africa which is has got the legal framework and so on for gold mining. So for miners who want to set up gold mining, that is the country to go to. What is your take on it? This is what I read.
Ghana has been one of the major gold producers in Africa. It used to be known as the Gold Coast.
Yes.
So they have a long history, and some of the largest gold mines are operating in Ghana.
I think the question to ask next is it easy for people from this part of the world to find partners that they can work with for tapping the mineral wealth in Africa?
The mineral wealth is very political. It requires a great deal of dialogue with the governments involved, and of course that requires a close relationship with the local partners who can ensure that favorable conditions are provided from the local governments. I think it can be done, but of course it's high risk, high reward. The mineral resources in Africa are very rich, and I think there are great opportunities, but it requires good networking and connections locally.
Any other questions? If not, maybe show our appreciation to Mr. Chandaria for taking time to come and share his expertise with us. Thank you, Mr. Chandaria. Thank you very much. Since Mike Singh is not here, Mike Singh never wore a turban, so I guess I could be a substitute for Mike Singh. But I thought that we have had some very interesting exposés on the diaspora, and I wanted to share some information with you before we go on to the next speaker. I have a flash actually this was a very interesting flash presentation which condensed the entire air traffic movements in 24 hours around the world into 1 minute and 10 seconds. And it basically showed the pattern of flights across the globe. Now, when we talk about the diaspora, basically we're talking about people who have moved from their countries of origin and gone to new countries and settled and accepted it as their homeland and grown their businesses. So, the facts, if you take the largest groupings of diaspora people, we have successful Indian and Chinese entrepreneurs who have grown large businesses that are little known outside their region. And today, large Indian and Chinese companies are buying up foreign companies. And so this whole concept of a diaspora business summit is really to provide a platform that allows the diaspora communities to get together and share their experiences, as you have heard, about how they have succeeded in growing their businesses in new homes that they have accepted, and how you can partner with them in this business. Now, if you take the Indians, you have the assimilated Indians who represent those that are there for a couple of generations. You have the overseas Indians who are the more recent ones. And if you look at historical perspectives, you'll find that from India, the Hindu and Buddhist influence had a lot to do with the migration of the Indian people and their culture and trade to Southeast Asia, and this was followed by the map in green shows the movement of Islam from India to Southeast Asia as well. And we've just heard from Mr. Chandaria how his family business has gone into Africa, and the difference between the business communities in Southeast Asia that were of Indian origin and in Southeast Asia and in Africa is that in Southeast Asia, because of the colonial historical experience, most of them were trading in textiles and goods that were produced in India and pushed into the markets of Southeast Asia. And in reverse, they took commodities which they moved from Southeast Asia back to India and beyond. But in the case of Africa, as you have heard, although Mr. Chandaria didn't go into too much detail about his own company, they were not just traders or civil servants, but they were also involved in manufacturing. And that is the difference between the Indian business community in Africa as opposed to the business community in Southeast Asia. And so because of their manufacturing experience, they have been able to move beyond Africa to other places. And today you'll find that Indians are found all over the world, in North America, in Canada, in South America, and they're particularly strong in the Caribbean, where they form a potent business force very much like the Chinese in Southeast Asia. So whichever part of the Caribbean you go to, you'll find that these 5 million odd Indians that live in the Caribbean have great control over the businesses which are usually tourism related, because all the cruise ships go to the Caribbean, and these are the people who are controlling the business in the Caribbean. Now, if you look at their history, the ancient maritime adventurers, as you have heard from Mr. Chandaria, they went as indentured labor, contract labor, and more recently you have had the prosperous businessmen, technocrats, and professionals. We've had the example of Ashish, who spoke about how he went to the US. So this is the new generation of Indian migrants who have put their roots down in those countries and grown their businesses. And we estimate that the net worth of overseas Indians is about more than US 300 billion, and over 30% of it is in the US, and probably a large chunk of it is in Ashish's pocket. 17% in Africa, 16% in UK, 15% in the Asia Pacific, and 15% in West Asia. And they're found in 136 countries, and in 40 countries they exceed 50,000 persons, and they make up more than 40% of the population in Fiji, Mauritius, Guyana, and Suriname. Now, unfortunately, Mike would have been here to talk to us today about these places like Guyana and Suriname in the Caribbean, but we'll have to make do with listening to this and for some other presentations. There are smaller minorities in Malaysia, in South Africa, Sri Lanka, Uganda, UK, USA, Canada, and Singapore, and a lot of them are in the professions, businesses, and more recently in the politics of their country of domicile. So if you take the population in Africa, in Kenya, Mauritius, Mozambique, South Africa, Tanzania, you'll find that there's quite a sizable number of them in these places. And in the Americas, you'll find that in Guyana, they are substantially large, in Jamaica, in Suriname, Trinidad and Tobago, and in the USA, of course, they are substantial in number. In Asia, again, you find them not just in the neighboring ASEAN countries, but also in Burma and places like Afghanistan and Bhutan. And in Australasia, you find them again in Australia, in Fiji, and in Europe, as you have heard from our previous speaker, Ms. Stern, you have them in France, in Germany, in Netherlands, and UK. So the point that I'm trying to make here is whether you go to the Middle East or you go to any place. In the Middle East, they are mostly a working population, but in the other places, a lot of them are business people. Now, this forms a very substantial network that you can tap into for business. And if you take the Chinese in the same fashion, the assimilated Chinese, the overseas Chinese, the aspiring immigrants, you'll find that the bulk of them have migrated from the southern China portions. And in Singapore, of course, you find mostly the Hokkien and the Teochew-speaking communities with a mixture of Hakka and Hainanese. And in Hong Kong, you would find more the Cantonese. And they have also spread their wings, mostly in Southeast Asia. In South America, you find them more in Peru than anywhere else. And they have, of course, gone to Canada in a big way, and more recently to Europe. Now, the influx of the Chinese, overseas Chinese, into Southeast Asia was a very interesting transition, because a lot of them went into business and diversified from small businesses to very large businesses. And you'll find that the rate represents the Chinese population, majority of course in Hong Kong, Taiwan and Singapore, but in other places, though they are small in population, they control a very large section of the economy. And when China opened up, it was these overseas Chinese that went into China and took with them the expertise that they had built up in Southeast Asia, in manufacturing, in infrastructure development, and more importantly, they took with them a network that was able to put together capital and expertise to do projects on a very large scale. And you'll find that the UK Chinese population has increased since 1951. If you take the investments in Africa, they have increased tremendously in a lot of the African countries that most people would not have heard of or gone to. And if you take the population of Chinese nationals that are officially registered in Japan, you will see that it has seen a tremendous increase over the years. And even in a place like Russia, the purple represents the more recent immigrants. You'll find that they are substantially growing in number. And a lot of these people are not just going there to live and work, a lot of them are actually in business. Now, what makes the Chinese very interesting is the fact that if you look at this, this is not Chinese noodles, it's actually a network of businesses that span, in this case, Thailand, Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia, Philippines. They have the ability to network and to work with each other. And this is what makes them stand out when it comes to big projects, as you would find in China. For example, when China opened up. And so, what the Diaspora Summit is trying to do is really expand on this Chinese method of networking, where you can put together large capital for development based on the network and trust that they have built up with each other over the years, no matter which country they're in. It's like the warlords in China in the old days. You know, when they wanted to go to war, they would open their chest and say, okay, who wants to contribute? We'll buy the soldiers, rent the soldiers, go to war, and whatever we get, we will share with the people who supported us. Now, instead of going to war, they are engaged in economic warfare in the sense that they are taking large projects. So this whole summit has the potential to bring together a group of like-minded people who transcend ethnic boundaries, who transcend what you would call the traditional national or ethnic boundaries, and talk about doing business, and doing business on a very large scale, simply by the fact that they are able to network with each other and share their expertise for larger gains and larger profits. So, the Global Diaspora Business Summit is really trying to create a platform for diaspora businesses to meet at least once a year. And we want to generate intra-regional business prospects and gain global recognition for the successful role models, as you have heard today, since we started in the morning. And I thought that I should share this with you because after this, again, you're going to hear from other entrepreneurs who will talk about how they have succeeded in the various businesses that they have undertaken and how we can work towards something like this. So I'll stop here. This is, I think, a very poor substitute for Mike Singh's interesting stories about the Caribbean. But I thought that on this note, if I stopped, we could then move on to the next speaker. And I actually had, for the panel discussion, Dato' Vijay from Malaysia, whom I will call up to come and make a short presentation. He's an interesting person because he is an ethnic Indian businessman who grew up in Malaysia, and he has developed a herbal business that actually has gone to Australia, it has gone to Jordan, and it has spread all over Malaysia. So I'll ask Dr. Vijay to come and make his presentation. You'll find his details in the biography of the speakers that you have been given with the program.
Very good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. First and foremost, I'm sure all of you all must be looking forward to have some tea. But before that, let us give a round of applause to Mr. George, who has taken the effort to put all of us together. Thank you, George. Thank you. Now, my name is Vijay. I come from B Corp Aberhard. That's our public company. The brand is Litna. I've got 3 brands, but the one which I've highlighted is Litna, and that's what we're doing right now. Well, I will say a few. There is some background noise and sound effect, but in this case, they can't get it because it's different PC. I will just go without the background voice activation. This is basically a family business, means I'm the family, because none of my family members are in the business. They all are professionals. Me too was a professional. I used to work for major carriers. My first job was with Malaysian Airlines, and then I later joined Northwest Orient American Airlines. I was based in Kuala Lumpur, but I was quite lucky to get a posting in Japan. Later I was posted to Minneapolis, which was the hub of Northwest Airlines. Swiss Air was operating out of UK then. I met the chairman on board, and he hooked me up to London Heathrow. I left Northwest to join Swiss Air. And from there, I went on to work with Nippon Airways in Osaka. That's my background. All my details are actually in the paper, so let's go fast. I've got about 400 slides, but I'm consolidating into 40 slides, so I have to go fast. Huh? A mother had 3 son-in-laws. The first son-in-law was put to task. So she invited the first son-in-law for a walk, and she fell into the water pretending to be drowning. Without hesitation, he went and helped her and saved her. As a gift, she gave him this one. So the first son-in-law got a car. After a while, she took the second son-in-law for a walk, and she did the same thing. And that guy too did the same thing, and the next day on his driveway, he too got the same. But after a while, she took the third son-in-law for the same stunt, and unfortunately, this guy didn't want to help her. She drowned. So when he went back home, after all the settlements, you know what he got? He got this, with a word of thank you from the father-in-law. The irony of the story here is, how lucky are you with whom? The father-in-law or the mother-in-law story? Now you have to select which one, but don't murder someone to get a Porsche like this. Now, Litna started the herbal business in, actual fact is 1998. The worst recession was in 1997. But before that, after I left my career with Nippon Airways, I used to drink some tea in Osaka. There they call it Jimnima. And I brought back the same tea because there they use it for slimming. And the story behind it, it cuts the sugar, so it cuts your weight. I marketed the same one here in Malaysia as Jimnima, putting all this herbal effect together, and there was a lot of tremendous things happening. So herbal medicine was the most tremendous thing following the footstep of the East, and the efficacy and benefits were fantastic. So that gave me an idea, why not I get into some herbal type of business rather than working for the airline. I left the airline to go on with the herbal business, and the opportunity was fantastic. Now, the traditional medicines are really good for health, and you can also do beauty care products, and all you need is human resources, and career opportunities were there plenty then as well as now. Now it has even has become more than my time it used to be. It also gives you a healthy lifestyle and living. Now, the other related industry is the agro-based activities, which include the herbal plantation. And biotechnology is another innovative idea which we have incorporated into our company products. Microorganism. The opportunities for herbal business in Malaysia alone is valued at 4.5 billion. That is in the year 2001. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry. Everyone can put a finger in it because the cake is big. The foundation and discoveries are very inevitable as the Malaysian government itself supports. They have set up a lot of grants, which you can see there, MEDAC, CIMIDAC, Bionexis. We have got the research institutes like the FIRIM and SERIM, MOSTI, and MATRID is the other organization which you can work with. To assess the rich resources, the herbal medicine in Asia, it's all here. The Malaysian grant gives you a lot of opportunity to set up and do some research as well. You will get a lot of money from the government. Now, part of it was also a good deal for us, being an innovative company with new ideas. We got into herbal business, I think, at the right time. The herbal industries and trade seminars are given by the government itself. If you are into any biotechnological product type of investment, will give you a better industry, better footing in Malaysia. Now, your partners could be a joint venture or a sole investor in Malaysia. You can collaborate with the type of business you want to get involved with. We are into purely herbal and into manufacturing of herbal products. I'll give you all the things. Now, the manufacturing license, of course, GMP, that's a compulsory thing by the ministry itself, which you are bound to if you want to set up a factory in Malaysia. But some countries still, they do allow without a GMP plant. But in Malaysia, you can't do that. Quality control is very important. And the other part, being a Malaysian Muslim country, halal is also a very important factor, which will enhance your product to sell. Now, when I say halal, in 1998, I launched another brand called Najwa. Now, that is purely a Muslim trade name, whereby in the Hadith or the Quran, Prophet has preached, if you were to use the Salvador Presica, it's an herb to brush. You can see the Muslims or the Arabs, they used to buy that kind of stick, we call mishwak. That is something very holy, and it has been very well preached by Prophet. So Prophet probably gave me an opportunity to do that business, and I started doing it in Malaysia. Now, the very first year, it was a very big business for us, as much as Jimnima. We went into, the demands was in domestic market, international market, and it is a traditional medicinal product too. Now, the raw materials were sourced from Pakistan and India. We finished it with the help of Balsara in India. Then we joint ventured with Dabur. We did the contract manufacturing with them first because I personally did not have the knowledge because I'm basically from the airline industry. With their help, a joint venture, we managed to do the toothpaste well. Then we went on with organic food and beverages, but beverages was not a success. Pharmaceutical and healthcare products was a great success, and cosmetic line. The biotechnology thing was another best thing which we did with a lot of plant-based products were incorporated in our products. Can briefly run through, and I can always email it to you all later because I'm being time restricted here. I'll go a little fast. Nanotechnology is another thing which you can incorporate into your herbal business, as well as biotechnology. And these days, you know, antioxidant, anti-cancer compounds are very, very highly respected thing which you can incorporate with your products if you want to do a herbal kind of base cosmetics or personal care products. Now, our company was established in '83. We ventured into a couple of businesses, which is freight, insurance, trading, and then we got into public with so many other activities. We are into restaurants too these days, which is a steakhouse. Now our vision, we provide quality and innovative products using our natural herbal ingredients, especially handmade, and it's our own formula. Great things happened in our life, and we started doing this business. This is the #1 product which I launched from a plant. It was 100% natural to a bottle and into a cup a day. Either morning and evening if you take, keeps your diabetes away. That was a great seller for us. The first year, I turned around 12 million ringgits. That was a big success for me because I was earning about 30,000 ringgits a month. So I made the right decision to quit working for the airline and went into this business, and I was doing about a million ringgits a month. That's a great success. Everyone knows this product quite well. It has been very widely used in India, Pakistan. It has been tested very well. I think most of the Indians will know that this leaf will definitely reduce your sugar level dramatically in your body system. So it was a real substitute against Western medicine, which was giving side effects to the kidneys. So I became popular with that and the radio talk shows. Then in 2000, I launched a new brand called Litna, which is meant to say like latest innovative technology, natural always. When I started, it was latest Indian toothpaste, natural always. That was the actual Litna meaning. But when I grew with a lot of other products, I changed a little bit and made it an innovative technology product. So we have got the #1 product in the personal care as Litna, herbal toothpaste. That's the one. That's also our #1 product. We blend this with 2 different types of herbs. The idea, I got it from a Tamil proverb. They said that the banyan and acacia stick, or rather twigs, is good for your oral care and for your gums too. So that idea from that proverb provoked me to invent a toothpaste blending these 2 herbs. It's just basically, I picked it up from a proverb. So that is now our #1 seller, and we export to a couple of countries, Jordan, Middle East, Canada, we are in Australia. What it does not contain is the most important thing. No animal byproducts, no saccharin, which is artificial flavor, sweetener. Of course, monosodium, neither alcohol or preservatives, and it's suitable for kids, sugar-free, fluoride-free, everything else free, but not the toothpaste. Huh? Well, after that, this is another success story. The other one is also a very tough business initially. Colgate, everyone knows. So I have to compete with big giants. Same like that. So I created an innovative idea, developed another soap in the form of a papaya. If you cut a papaya into 2, you get this shape. So I said, to sell a normal soap is not going to be easy. Why don't develop an idea and make a papaya soap? So I started studying something on this papain and got all the information that it tenderizes your skin. It's also a natural bleacher. It enlightens or whitens your color. And with that, I got this soap introduced into the market. It went very well. With that, after a shower, what do? Normally, you will make up with cream or other kind of tonics, your facial. So I developed another product using the papain with the pearl powder. It just became a sunblock cream, which is Litna Papaya Pearl Cream. With the pearl powder, this became a success story. Now, facial, move to the air. Now, you can see here, we are using natural colors. That means all the colors are not dyes, but from plant extract. For the black, we use indigo leaf, which gives you the black color. For the chestnut, we use coffee. And the middle one is the gold. We use curcuma. Curcuma is the yellow powder which you use for cooking. So that's the color you get, and that's hair color. All are basically all are natural products. Now, you use your color, you've got to wash it. You need a good shampoo. Now, a lot of shampoos contain a lot of heavy chemicals. What I found out was you can do a good wash without soap. So I created and developed a new shampoo, 100% soap free. All these, the little bit of the new things invented, made our products a success. People went for, this is a soap-free shampoo, let's try. And if you look at the coconut, the white color bottle, that's made from coconut water extract. Coconut water has got a content called cocosine. It enhances strengthens your hair. It's like a nourishment for your papilla. The brown one is made from henna leaves to darken your hair. And the purple one is the lavender, which gives you good sleep. And the last one is aloe vera. Every one of these has got their own qualities. Then I moved on to do invented products like this is more of a pharmaceutical, and this product is manufactured in Brisbane. One of my trips, I found this on the street in one of the pharmacies. So I just picked up 2 bottles from Australia, and I tried it myself. The results were just unbelievable. Medically also, my pressure from medication, I went without medication, without tablets. My pressure was brought down. Then I became crazy of this because I felt this effect of olive leaf extract will be as good as my Gymnema, which reduced the blood sugar in the body. So went and negotiated with this company. They were going a little down. We pumped in some capital, and we took over the company in Brisbane. This is located about 182 kilometers from Brisbane Airport in a place called Kuminia. It is also naturally produced in a jungle area where no chemical is used. Even the water is from their own farm. So it is an organic product, 100% imported from Australia at this moment. We export to America, Korea, and Japan. 2 months ago, I sold the first bottle in Malaysia. Word of mouth, by word of recommendation, the sales has picked up quite well. This is how, little explanation about this. The whole plantation is in a single estate. And it has been produced in the maximum compliances. You know, the Australian health authorities are really, really strict. So this is ARTG registered product, as well as Malaysian MLA, that's Malaysian FDA registered. Most of the facts are all about the product, what it can do. Fresh olive leaves are being used to manufacture this. No reconstituted or dried powder is used in this. From the time the leaves are harvested, it only takes about 90 minutes and it's bottled naturally. So the ingredient gives you the bioavailability of the strength you need after you have taken it. If you have got eczema, or if you have got pressure, if you have got diabetes, this is a natural product to take care of your health. The most important thing of this product, this is a natural antioxidant. You can see one of the charts here. All this I've said. The other number one effect is because of the pressure, is cardiovascular healthy, and it helps your system. It helps your heart to function normal. That's the most important part of the engine. All right, this is the chart. Look at the antioxidant. In vitamin C, you have got 2,100. Green tea, 5,900. Grapeseed, to 6,200. And you see, Litna olive leaf extract has got 10,000 units. So the natural antioxidant capacity in this is really high. Now, these are the Litna products, the beauty of the products. Now, before I say thank you, just to make the hearts a little lighter, the husband asked the wife, if I die, what will you do? Will you marry another guy? She told, oh, no, I love you and I love my sister. Since you're not there, I'll go and stay with my sister. The wife asked him back, if I die, what will you do? I love you, I love your sister too. So if you're not there, I'll go and live with your sister. Have a nice day with a good heart. And thank you very much. We'll see you again next time.
Very nice presentation. Could you please tell us what when you go to the market like United States, where regulators are like FDA, who is keeping good eyes on product like this, and also because of a lot of pharmaceutical companies doing lobby against this kind of product. What kind of challenges you face in terms of going to the developed country, which is a big market for this kind of product? Second thing, a lot of products like this, like a Chinese medicine, Ayurveda, are existing from hundreds of years. Now, few companies like yours or Himalayan, these guys have been doing very well. In terms of marketing strategy, what did you do different, which people like us can learn from you, could be the key for the success company like this? Thank you.
Thank you. That's a good question too. Basically, to get into the markets like US, it's not that easy. Number one is from Malaysia. For us to go there, the challenges he was asking is basically we are having problems with the freights, which contributes the price to be more expensive, and especially products which are made in Malaysia are not competitive in pricing. However, if you are looking at to market it with the points of the extras which you have got in this product may not be available in the markets, the products which are available in their markets. Now, to face the problems is to restructure or blend your products in different countries whereby the prices will be much cheaper. Now, our prices are very competitive to be exported to some countries only. And that's why if you see the restriction is there, that we are not able to compete products coming from China and India directly. As far as the product quality is concerned, with the right advertising, you will be able to market our kind of products anywhere. Even in Malaysia, we are not cheap. Colgate may sell a 100-gram toothpaste for 420 ringgits. Ours is sold at 590. So you imagine, we do have selective good customers to take on products like this. So I think quality will speak for itself, and your challenge is to advertise it clearly with what are the goodness of the products.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Vijay. I think we will stop here for now because we have two more speakers. And we have the next round of speakers is the slot that is going to make presentations on opportunities in China and opportunities in India. Mr. Aloysius has kindly agreed to let the Indian contingent speak first because they have an appointment at 5:30. So without further ado, first of all, let us thank Dr. Vijay for his excellent presentation. And may I invite Mr. Pankaj Saran, whose details are all given in the profiles that I have circulated to all of you. An institution builder, management professional, consultant, policy analyst, and applied behavioral scientist. He is a partner in a 50% ownership of 2,000 acres of land that is being developed for industrial parks and so on. And he's going to make a presentation on this particular project in the state of Gujarat.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm the last but one speaker, and I knew I'd be struggling with the audience, which is trying to stay awake and run away at the same time. Anyway, George is a great, great friend, and in fact, he told me last week that I've got to come. So I got in this morning, and I'm going to be talking about a major project which is happening called the Gujarat Vittal Innovation City. This is a high technology special economic zone which is being jointly promoted by a consortium which I am involved with and the government of Gujarat. I'll quickly run you through this presentation and then we could perhaps take in some questions. India, of course, all of you know today has become the real high-tech hub of the world. The software story, of course, is well known, but a much lesser well-known thing that has been happening over the last 10 years is that a lot of outsourced R&D is taking place from almost all the top destinations in the world. led by the United States. And R&D has picked up in a big way in the country. In fact, India, we have witnessed a very interesting trend where India has gone from an agrarian economy, and this is, I think, something which everybody is aware of, to a services economy without having the benefit of manufacturing in between. And not just moving into a services economy, but India has also made a transition towards high-end R&D. And in fact, most of the leading companies in the world, led by General Electric, IBM, Cisco, Texas Instruments, mostly American companies started the trend of setting up R&D centers in India. So there's been this huge process where India has, in a way, emerged as the R&D destination of the world. Now, a very interesting thing which we were encountering about 2.5 years back when we started was that there was no planned effort at the emergence of R&D in India. R&D is something that just happened. And R&D is something which rode on the software wave and took off in the country. It was something which was not planned, it was something which had not been designed, and it was something which perhaps just happened to have happened again. And we were, in fact, looking at the possibility of setting up an integrated ecosystem that brought industry, academia, and community together. A lot of you are aware of the Bangalore story. In fact, Bangalore is something which, again, accidentally happened. A lot of factors came together, I think, led by the fact that it was good climate, led by the fact that software companies in the initial stages started off there about 15 years back, led by the fact that a lot of R&D centers, especially India's space program, etc., were located there. So a lot of these factors kind of accidentally fell through and Bangalore happened. But anybody who's been to Bangalore recently can only talk of how the city has virtually collapsed. I mean, it's something which is something where the lack of planning is now showing up. And we were, in fact, engaging with a lot of IT industry and other high-tech industry about 2 years back, that how can we create a planned innovation cluster in India? And that's when this idea of the Gujarat Vittal Innovation City was born. And this is, in fact, India's first planned science park or high-tech cluster. And in fact, the Director General of the International Association of Science Parks, Dr. Louis Sanz, has called it one of 21st century's 10 major initiatives. This is again a pitch which we made for investors. I'll quickly run you through what it's all about. This project is the first of its kind in India which is not led by real estate developers. It's led by a consortium of academicians, professionals in various fields. It's a unique model. In fact, I don't know how many of you are aware, everybody knows the great Tata company. But very, very few people know that Tata company is owned by the holding company called Tata Sons. And Tata Sons, in fact, is owned largely, almost 63%, by philanthropic trusts. So the structure and business model of Tata's is so designed that profits that come from any of the Tata companies, whether Tata Motors or Tata Steel or Tata Consultancy, almost 63% of that profit goes directly, by mandate, by design, towards philanthropic causes. This is something very, very few people know about, that corporate social responsibility was structured in the Tata business model itself. And this is not something which was done today, it was done almost 100 years back. And in fact, we were inspired by the Tata model, where we said, can we try and use a non-profit-led consortium to take advantage in terms of creating a high technology cluster where it could utilize cross-resourcing for R&D, education, and innovation. I'll explain this a little bit more in detail. The third thing was, we in fact got the government of Gujarat, which is India's most progressive government in the western state of India. In fact, it's a government where the Tata Nano factory, I don't know whether you've followed the story, this is the famous lowest cost car produced in India, which was earlier going to the eastern state of West Bengal and then ran into a lot of land acquisition problems. And then finally, Nano was pulled together amongst a race by different states by the state of Gujarat. And within 10 days' time, almost 2,000 acres of ready land with connecting infrastructure was given to the Tatas, which Mr. Tata himself, Mr. Ratan Tata, said is a national record. So we in fact partner with the Gujarat government. They're in fact a 50% joint venture partner in the project. The project is located in Valsad, which is western India, about 2 hours driving time from Mumbai International Airport. its non-polluting businesses, of course, benchmark. The organization and people. The project is structured as a 50-50 joint venture between the consortia led by us. And the role of our consortia, again, like the Tata Sons model, is so designed that we will basically look at the land and trunk infrastructure, and we'll bring in best-in-the-class companies, institutions, and individuals. And we will provide an enabling environment to companies to move forward. So this is the broad structure we're looking at. GIDC, which is the Gujarat Industrial Development Corporation of the Government of Gujarat, acquires the land, transfers it to us. Jivik is a developer led by a non-profit based on the Tata model, which essentially basically provides the enabling environment, and then various sectors are structured into the entire project. The project is again named after Mr. Vittal. N. Vittal is a legendary bureaucrat in India. Many of you might have heard of him. He was considered to be the father of the Indian software revolution. He was a famous secretary, electronics at that point of time for almost 10 years. Then he's the man who's credited with bringing mobile telephony to India. And the time when he became the chairman of Telecom Commission in the mid-90s, it was well known that in India it took 10 years to get a fixed line connection. And today we all know India is the fastest growing mobile market in the world, and I think Mr. Vittal played a very key role in it. Of course, he then went on to become India's #1 whistleblower. He became the anti-corruption point person in the country and in fact shook the whole country up. So he's a very, very famous and respected person, and the whole consortium in fact shaped up under him. So we've got a lot of top professionals involved. We've got Mr. Vittal himself leading it, Mr. Bami, who was earlier chairman of NTPC, and Mr. Abhiram Seth, who was considered to be the pioneer of agribusiness in India and former head of Pepsi. And of course, a whole lot of professionals involved. Now, the model which we proposed was, we said, work, live, learn, play, create. That means if you can bring together people, make them work nearby, give them a nice living environment, and of course, give them the possibility of an interplay between work and play, and perhaps some creation would happen. That's the basic model. So this has been the broad soul which we've looked at. We've said industry, we've said academia, we've said community development and governance, and how all these three things interact together and in fact lead to, hopefully, innovation. The project concept, again, we have structured the whole project. This is a 1,100 hectare project, almost 2,800 acres. It has been designed on a multi-product special economic zone platform. This is again something which was inspired by China. I'm sure the next speaker would talk about it. India has gone it for its own model of special economic zones. And we in fact brought in this whole special economic zone and adapted it towards creating an R&D cluster. We are also looking at co-locating industry and entrepreneurship, R&D, education, and training in a world-class community. The third part, which is where I again kind of amplify on the Tata model, is structurally business model is industry academia-led, not real estate developer-led. We have designed the whole thing in such a way that real estate developers, of course, there's a play into the process, but that play is something which will lead to proceeds or a large amount of proceeds going into knowledge, training, research, and innovation. And of course, the central part which we've looked at, we've said that any high-tech cluster has to have human skill creation as the essential part in it. That's the key. And this is something which we have said that we would create a knowledge, training, and research hub where we would host a lot of global universities and technical institutes. In fact, India is already working on bringing a major legislation to allow top universities across the world to come and set up campuses. We're already discussing with a number of top players who want to kind of come in here and not just locate campuses, but also locate what I mentioned earlier, R&D centers. This is broadly the broad project concept. On the left-hand side is what we said, the talent creation and social ecosystem. The middle part is where we say anchor companies and enclaves. And on the right-hand side, we said, if you have to attract the best talent, which is what R&D and innovation is all about, I think the same Singapore model is there for everybody to see. You have to create a world-class living ambience. You have to try and create an ecosystem which will attract the best talent in the world. And this is something which we have been working for the last 2.5 years, and we've kind of come to the conclusion that global talent today is mobile. If you give them a good place to stay, if you give them a good place to work, they would come. And that's where we said that this project will essentially have a world-class township built into it. So we are in fact designing a major township of almost 100,000 people to be based there, living in a world-class ambience. And this entire thing has to be structurally integrated. That's the key. A lot of people talk in terms of co-locating industry, academia, and community and say innovation would happen. We are saying that until the time it is not structurally integrated, it's a very difficult proposition. So that's something which we have, by design, tried to bring into the project. Of course, a number of enclaves which we're talking of. IT, we're talking of electronics and robotics, semiconductor is going to be a big major, digital animation, agro-marine, that's another major area which we intend pioneering in the country. Aerospace and, of course, an MRO. And there's significant interest from Singapore and from a whole lot of areas to get involved in this. Broadly, again, the model is self-sustaining. We have said that any model has to be self-sustaining. It cannot necessarily depend on government help forever. So we have said each of the stakeholders involved must have their particular minimum set of aspirations pragmatically met. So academia should look in terms of international campuses. Academia should look in terms of cross-subsidy from industry and co-developers. Industry, of course, is looking for a world-class environment. It's looking for exports. It's looking for tax breaks, which is where we brought in the special economic zone. So SEZs provide that. Government, now in the government, we know in the government of India, especially in the state governments, we have said, do what you're best at. The government, in fact, is best, we realized, at bringing land and at creating the enabling infrastructure, bringing in the approvals, and that's it. We said we did not want the government to be involved in much more than this. Because in India, and I'm sure a lot of you are aware of the Indian governance story, government is slow, government is cumbersome, government delays lots of things. So we've said we'll only bring in government to the extent that is required. And of course, the fourth component, which we said, international investors and co-developers who come in for different parts of whatever's being done. Project evolution. This has been broadly how our project has evolved from April 2008 to, in fact, 2009. The government of Korea has got involved in our project in a big way. And we did not realize it. Almost 2.5 years we've been engaging with the government of Korea. And Koreans were looking at trying to create, again, a China plus one strategy, but also trying to relocate a large part of industry out from China to India and from Korea to India. So we, in fact, virtually fell into their lap. We did not realize it at that point of time. And Korea, in fact, has also signed a major comprehensive economic partnership agreement with India, a major FTA treaty, like it did with Singapore, India did with Singapore. So a similar kind of FTA has been signed, and we have had, I guess, the privilege of having this project becoming the action platform for the FTA. And this is something which we signed on the 4th of August 2009. Again, coming to the basics, the project is strategy located. This is Bombay, and this is Delhi. And in fact, there's a huge interest in Singapore because the Japanese are putting up a high-speed rail link between Delhi and Mumbai. And this is being called and touted as the world's most ambitious infrastructure project. It's being called as the Delhi-Mumbai Industrial Corridor. And this corridor is about 1,400 kilometers long. And this corridor is essentially going to have at its heart a major high-speed rail network. The rail network is something which is already getting built. In fact, the initial ODA loans, etc., have been sanctioned. The government has already acquired the land. And what the government of India and now the Japanese want to do is, on 150 kilometers both sides, create what's called a Delhi-Mumbai Industrial Corridor. And I guess the basic idea is inspired from the Tokyo-Osaka corridor. So we are basically looking at Bombay, and of course, here is our project site. We're about 2 hours driving time from the Mumbai International Airport. And this place is called Valsad. We are, in fact, building it on the seaside to try and build in the best ambience. This is what, in fact, the Korea Land Corporation, which is a government of Korea developer, has been kind of looking at the major preliminary perspectives. We've engaged them as master developers. And this is the Arabian Sea, the western coast of India. Bombay is this side and Delhi is this side. And this is about 2,800 acres of development which is being planned. This is broadly the perspectives. The key anchor partners. We've brought in a lot of top IT companies from India. companies like Cognizant, which is again one of the fastest growing IT companies in the world. A number of other companies have come together. We've brought education, in fact, TMPI. Apple is a company which has signed on to be a part to lead the digital animation enclave. Among science parks, which is what we essentially said this is going to be, we got Diaspora from Korea and Heidelberg from Germany. In fact, Heidelberg from Germany is leading the life sciences initiative as a part of the entire project. And master planners, of course, is the Korea Land Corporation. This is again on the 4th of August. This is a well-known man. You might have seen his face. His name is Narendra Modi. He's considered to be the most dynamic chief minister of India amongst all the states. And he's the one who's brought a lot of business-like speed to the entire state. And this is a major memorandum agreement which was signed by the Korean side. So we had the Korean Minister for Construction who had come, and of course the Korea Land Corporation and the government of Gujarat and us. So this was a major trilateral MOA which was signed. And the Koreans, in fact, are taking 800 acres of this complex and developing it as India's first Korean industrial park cum technology zone. So this is something which is going to be the anchors. They are also involved in the larger infrastructure development of the project. The current status is the project has been approved, 1,100 hectares. Land has been taken in by the government. It has been approved by the government of Gujarat and the government of India. Land notification is already been done. Gujarat as a state has never had land problems, so it's kind of moving forward very fast. The Koreans have come in, and for the aerospace enclave, we have brought in the Center for Asia-Pacific Aviation, who are world leaders in aerospace advisory. And in fact, as a part of that, we are working on creating not just an MRO, but we're also working on creating the world's first helicopter city, which is an end-to-end, entire across the spectrum, all industries, all kind of vendors coming in for helicopters. The current status, of course, master planning, we hope to finish it by February. Of course, we brought in a major power station which wants to come in to set up a power plant. A lot of top equity players, etc., have already, in fact, given us their expression of interest to be a part of it. This is broadly how media has covered it. Of course, it's been very widely covered in Indian media. And the key next steps, of course, the land acquisition, everything is in progress, and we are right now discussing with a whole lot of investors and stakeholders how to take this project forward. Thank you.
Any questions from the floor regarding this particular project or investments in India per se or in the state of Gujarat? Okay, then we'll say thank you to Pankaj, who has another meeting to attend. And I would now like to call upon our partners in this whole conference, the Dacheng Group, to come up and make their presentation on China. But before we do that, can we have a round of applause for our speakers from India?
Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, George, for your introduction. I have the unenviable task of being the last speaker. I'll try to make this as interesting as possible. My experience in China in the last 7 years has been filled with joy and pain, and I hope to share that with you as I introduce to you investment opportunities moving ahead in this next 10 years. I believe that the time has come for Asia to grow. India and China would be the two major economies driving economic growth in this part of the world, and I think that will also generate a lot of economic activity in ASEAN as well. Let me just share with you some of the growth areas that I see in China. One of which is infrastructure projects. There are a lot of projects now involving road building, rail, townships, and industrial park development. And we see a lot of foreign investors, foreign parties, particularly from Singapore, from Malaysia, from India, taking part in some of these projects. We also see investment opportunities in second and third tier cities. And what do we mean by second and third tier cities? We mean cities apart from Shanghai and Beijing, which we are all very familiar with. Cities like Chengdu, Wuhan, Shenyang, all are provincial capitals. They are all growing at a very fast rate. We see growth in the services industry, in finance, in hotel management, in asset management. And we also see growth in green and clean industries, waste treatment, water treatment, sustainable power generation, solar and wind. These are all areas of interest in China as well as, I think, in India as well. I think I'm just reiterating a fact. China is a land of opportunity. But opportunity only waits for the person who goes out and grab it. It will stay as an opportunity and only as an opportunity if you do not take the active step. And we've heard speakers today say, let's not just sit and talk about it, let's take the opportunity and do it. Now, it's the third largest economy in the world, a large population of 1.3 billion and rising, a growing middle class, and fast rate of economic growth in most cities. Now, there's also internal competition for resources among the cities, which means we have cities in China coming out, trying to attract resources from outside of China. And as a foreigner going into China, you have that choice to locate your business, to look for business partners in across China. You have got people who are out there wanting to welcome you into their cities. I'm just trying to recapitulate, to recall what we've heard this morning. We talk about culture. We have a common culture base. There's a commonality. I think that was something that was discussed. But I also like to highlight that there's also cultural diversity and cultural differences. As a Singaporean, I'm a third generation Singaporean Chinese. To complicate it a bit further, I actually have Peranakan blood coming from Malacca, which means somewhere down the system or down my blood, I've got a couple of bloods of Portuguese blood, which makes me think, when Chetra was talking about Portugal, I was thinking, wow, that's a good place. I want to go back and visit Portugal sometime. But I've often been asked this question when I'm in China, where are you from? I mean, who are you? Where are you from? Because I look Chinese. Who am I? And I find it very difficult to answer that question because we live in a times when things are changing. So I tell people that I hold a Singapore passport. I'm a Singapore citizen. I'm a third generation Chinese. I've possibly got some Malay, Portuguese blood in me. I work for a Singapore-China joint venture company, and I spend half my time in Singapore, half my time in China, so that's my story. And I think gradually as people move along, the world is getting smaller. We will have these blurring of lines. So I think what is important for us as we actually go into a place like China, we acknowledge that there are cultural similarities, but there are also cultural differences. And more importantly, there are legal differences. We live in a region where there are jurisdictional differences. We have a civil law system, we have a common law system. And within the common law system, there are also differences. India is a common law system, as is Malaysia and Singapore. But from the experience that I hear, it's a very different kind of system, how it's actually being implemented. We also have hybrid systems, part civil, part common law. China is by far large a civil law system, but it realizes that there are some good points about the common law. The thing about legal precedent, one judge making a decision binding a further judge, they are trying to evolve their system to accommodate that as well. And I think what is important as potential investors going to China, we need to understand the legal differences and to minimize risk by understanding the legal system and making sure that we use the law to protect our investments as we go in. One other thing that I'd like to also highlight is not just the legal difference, but different business practices. We practice business very differently, we conduct business very differently. In the West, you may conduct a negotiation in a meeting room, in a boardroom, but in China, you may be conducting your negotiations over lunch, over dinner, with food and alcohol. Now, you need to be aware that it's a formal business negotiation while you're drinking and eating, and be aware that whatever you discuss, you'll be held accountable for it, and you'll be reduced into some form of a written document, and you'll be signing for it. So there are certain cultural and business differences that we also need to be aware of. I just want to highlight a couple of projects, investment opportunities that are available. And the common ground to all of these are that how does a Singapore company, how does Singapore play a part in all this? The company I'm highlighting is a Singapore-based company that's established itself in China as a consultancy company. It has a target with China-specific businesses. It only establishes itself with Chinese businesses. It is in the real estate, project financing and management business, does corporate restructuring, alternative and private equity investment consultancy. To date, it has raised about $200 million for Chinese enterprises. And what is the value add that a Singapore company has going in with foreign parties into China? It's our ability to network, our ability to manage, our ability to coordinate, working with other partners, and acting as the interface with the Chinese. And for GI Advisory, their strategy is working with various partners, hospitality partners, big names in the industry, financial partners, and asset management partners, bringing these brands, working with a Singaporean company in China, and servicing Chinese clients. I'm just running through the slides because these are just case studies that I would like to share with you. They have worked with Advantage Hospitality Group, which is a large US-based hospitality group with the Lexington brand, and also the American Best Value Inns. So those of you who are familiar with the US know American Best Value Inns. In China, it's known as China's Best Value Inns. They've got 4 brands as well, all the way from 2-star all the way to 4-star. Now, Vantage Group is ranked 8th in the world in terms of hotel rooms managed, just behind or just ahead of Hyatt Hotels. And basically what GI Advisory has done is to go into this marketplace, which is actually very much a local marketplace. Property development remains a very much protected and local industry in China. But with the network, with the connection, with the ability to bring in foreign branded partners and customizing a solution for the local developer, it's able to create a niche for itself. This is a project in Kunshan. Kunshan is a 2nd-tier city, 3rd tier possibly, 45 minutes out of Shanghai, famous for its Taiwanese industries there. It's a hotel project, 81 rooms, not a very big project, 3,800 square meters. It's looking for partners to undertake retrofitting and commissioning of the hotel, and investors who want to hold such assets as a regular an asset with a regular return. So this is one possible opportunity. I'm highlighting to you a SME from Singapore going there, carving a niche for itself. I want to go on to talk about another company. This is another company, Jianhuang Group. It's a Singapore-based company with operations in China and in Vietnam. And basically, this is the structure you see with all the companies that it has. It has an annual turnover of 60 million, completed successfully $200 million worth of projects, ranked 8th in the 2007 Enterprise 50 ranking. It's a very well-regarded company in Singapore, a very large SME. They are in the construction sector, building, general buildings, private and government projects, civil engineering works, and also into environmentally friendly solutions like water treatment solutions, innovation, and new technologies for buildings. They're also in equipment trading and servicing. Now, these are the areas that they're strong in and they have established themselves in Singapore with. They've brought that expertise into China. And they have looked at some projects. One of this project is an integrated multi-purpose commercial and recreation center consisting of 5 15-story tower blocks. It's in a place called Jingde. It's in Fuliang County in Jiangxi Province. For those of you who don't know where Jiangxi Province is, it's on the east coast of China, somewhere near the Fujian Province. It's considered a 3rd, possibly 4th-tier city, but that's where the opportunities are. The total project has a land area of 34,000 odd square meters, cost of investment 300 million RMB, sales revenue about 420 RMB based on the anticipated sale price of 2,400 per square meter for the land. Now they're looking for investors to finance this project and partners to work with to develop. They're also involved with another project, also in the same city. This is a villa project, total land area, 170,000 square meters. Project costs about 300 million RMB. For those of you who are scratching your head about conversion, it's about roughly 5 RMB to 1 Sing dollar, or about 7 RMB to 1 US dollar, roughly about that. So they're looking at a sales revenue of about 500 million, which is about 100 million Sing on this project. looking for investors to finance this project. So those of you who are interested, the Managing Director of Jian Huang is actually in the audience today, and if you are interested, you can take it further with her on any queries on these projects. Annie, you want to just raise your hand so that you know Annie's there? Okay. And this is some of the drawings on the project that we just discussed, China Villa project. This is another view of the project. I just want to move on. I've just introduced two possible opportunities. One is with a SME that's from Singapore going in. Another one is actually a large SME going to property development. Now, Singapore has been used as a hub for many reasons. One is that we have a good base network to access the rest of Asia. A lot of Chinese provinces and cities have their economic promotion and investment board based in Singapore to give information to investors to invest in their home country. They use Singapore to organize events, to introduce their projects, and we get a lot of these visiting groups coming in from these various cities presenting projects to Singaporean investors, to investors in the region. These officers will offer very good updated information on current projects and incentives that can be obtained. They provide this information readily to you. We work with some of these officers on a very close basis because they offer governmental assistance to clients who want to actually set up in these places. Because apart from the law, you need to also have good administrative support. And that's very important in setting up any entity in China. One such opportunity that I want to highlight is a place called Shenyang. It's in the northeast of China, in Liaoning province. It is actually the gateway to the northeast of China. Northeast of China consists of 3 provinces, Liaoning, Jilin, and Heilongjiang. So this is the gateway to the northeast. Now, the Shenyang City Economic Promotion and Investment Board has an office in Singapore. And basically this office operates to provide information to interested parties, to highlight projects for investment. We have Ms. Chang with us today. She's from, she's from the Shenyang Economic Promotion Board. And if you have any queries on information relating to projects in Shenyang, you can approach her. One of the things that they're trying to promote now is the construction materials industry and the construction-related services and expertise industry. Now, what comes within that? Construction services, architecture, surveying, anything that's got to do with the construction services industry, they're interested in that. They're also interested in equipment manufacturing, construction equipment manufacturing, something that I think Jian Huang can think about as well because you're in this area. These are the 2 areas that this is construction industry, something that they want to promote. There will be possibly tax and other incentives to be given based on a case-by-case basis, based on the size of investment and what model of entry you want to go into as far as China is concerned. The other thing that they want to highlight is outward bound. They have Shenyang-based industries looking to go out of Shenyang, go out of China to look for opportunities outside of China. And this cuts across a range of industries. They're looking at opportunities for cooperation, for joint venture overseas. So if anybody who is interested in working with a Chinese party from this particular place, you can also get more information from Ms. Zhang. Currently, there is one Chinese company who's in the business of glass wall cladding. It's in the construction industry. They're looking at expanding and working outside of China at this point in time. Any questions so far? I think I have the last speaker, so I can actually take questions with George's kind consent. Any questions so far on what I've discussed? Yes, Arthur.
Okay, my name is Arthur Ngiam from Globe Precision Products. Now, just now, you say you give some figures, and you say one of your sentence you put rising middle class in China. Do you have any established or some accurate figures on the very close accurate figures of the size of the middle income in China?
I don't have exact statistics for you at this point, but the rising middle class is a component of two things. One is basically the increase in GDP in the country, and the other thing is the rising salary levels in the whole of China. That has gone up significantly. It is also an indicator is the property market and the stock market in China. Now, across the board, the whole of China, despite the financial crisis, China had an increase of about 6% for property prices from January right up till October. And this growth rate is actually based on consumer spending on property market within this last 10 months. I've not even talked about the luxury end market, the high-end market. Luxury goods market is growing tremendously in China, but let's put that aside. We're talking about the general masses. So it's just a general observation that I have.
Well, I don't need exact figure, but because a couple of years back, the World Bank reported that India has more than 200 million middle income class. So that is almost exceed or nearing the population of United States of America. So any indicated figures based on the median GDP or something? Of China, what's the middle?
Well, I think the Chinese middle class would be slightly larger than what is quoted for India. We're looking at possibly around about 400 million or so,
okay,
roughly around
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's good enough. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks. I'd just like to take this opportunity now to introduce a bit more about my firm. We are Dachen Central Chambers. We are actually a joint venture between Dachen law offices in China. They're the largest law firm with about 600-700 lawyers now across 30 cities in China. And Central Chambers, which is a Singapore-grown law firm. I was one of the founding partners together with Mr. Ronnie Tan in Singapore. And started to do China work 7 years ago. We have moved along, and as part of our growth expansion, we have gone and looked at other markets. This setting up of the joint venture is a first step in moving and looking beyond Singapore as the world gets smaller. I've mentioned that Dachen is actually the largest law firm in China, and actually it's also the largest law firm in Asia Pacific for 2009. These are the areas of practice. It's actually a full service law firm. We have all the information that you need in the folders, so I'm just running through very briefly. I want to talk about Central Chambers. It's a medium-sized law firm, homegrown. We are set up in Singapore in 2002. We are 7 years old this year, and we've been recently admitted to be a member of Consul-Legis, an international legal network representing Singapore. So we have access to legal expertise across the globe if necessary. And our client base basically are international corporations, government agencies, small and medium enterprises. And basically we cover these following areas of practice: corporate cross-border transactions, mergers and acquisition, civil and commercial litigation, arbitration, conveyancing and real estate, sports law, corporate secretarial, and corporate services. We can have the full details in our brochure, but this is just a flavoring. And with that, I thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Do you have any more questions on my presentation? If you have any specific questions on the projects that I've actually talked about, you can actually speak with Ms. Gan or Ms. Chang on the two projects. Anything else on China, I can talk about. Yes, sir.
If you are dealing with China now, is it better to go through Hong Kong or to go direct there? Because I say this because some years back when I used to monitor the trade figures between Singapore and China, I noticed this, that at one point when everybody was saying go to China, I looked through the trade figures, $10 million worth of trade between Singapore and exports, Singapore exports to China, and 500 million to Hong Kong. That 500 million is obviously going through Singapore to Hong Kong, and they know how to spread it. They are good at marketing. So has the situation changed?
I think Singapore and Hong Kong are still the two popular jurisdictions to structure a transaction going to China. depending on the need of the particular company, some people feel that Hong Kong is still too close to China. It's still, after all, China. The 50-year clock is ticking, so they feel that it's too close for comfort, and they do structure transactions out of Singapore. What we do see, because our firm is positioned as trying to bridge this gap between India, China, and ASEAN, we see a lot of transactions being conducted through Singapore, to use Singapore as a platform. And we see a lot of contracts with Singapore as a place of arbitration for dispute resolution. The Chinese would never want to have their law, governing law of a contract to be Indian law, and the Indians would never want to have the governing law to be Chinese law. And Singapore seems to be a very good neutral ground for both parties. We have a lot of contracts drafted with Singapore law and arbitration in Singapore. For some reason as well, we see a lot of Indian companies as well as Chinese companies structuring their transactions out of Singapore. So they may set up a Singapore trading company to transact. The Indian company will set up a Singapore company to transact with, say, China, or to transact with Indonesia. And likewise, the same thing for China. They'll set up something in Singapore. I think there's some comfort in the transparency, the rule of law, the tax, and basically the ease or the reputation of a Singapore jurisdiction. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions, ladies and gentlemen?
Okay, if not, I'd like to thank Aloysius for a very interesting presentation, and thank you for making us understand that investing in China or going into China is not as difficult as people think it is. Now, before we wind up, I would actually like to have a panel discussion where I invite the speakers who are still around. Some of them have had to go into other meetings. Just to have a last fling of questions from the audience that they might have after this round of presentations. So Aloysius, may I invite you to join the panel? And Ashish, you're here, and Chitra, and Dato Vijay. Okay, if I may just summarize the day's proceedings, we have actually tried to talk to you about the existence of a diaspora community which is made up of different ethnic groups, Chinese, Indian. We had a Malay who originates in Sumatra, has a mix of cultures in his ethnic bloodline. We've had a whole host of presentations on different types of businesses, from real estate to investment-related businesses. And basically the message that has come through is that if you have an entrepreneurial ability, like Ashish, for example, when his father cut off his extracurricular activities, pocket money, he found another way to make money by selling cigarettes, which he got cheap from some other place. Now, and then he translated that into a bigger business which has built a fortune for himself. So basically, opportunities for entrepreneurship exist whether you're in Portugal or you're in the US or any other place, and it's a matter of how you recognize this. People like Dacheng and others are very important because they bring about the process that allows this whole functioning of business to transition into a smooth process. So if we take all this into consideration, there are opportunities that abound across the globe in various parts of the world, and it's a matter of how we tap into it. And today we've been fortunate to listen to a group of people who have not only done it, but have taken the trouble to come here and share with us their experiences of how they have done it. So before we end, the questions that you should ask are the kind of questions that give you an insight into what motivates these people. What is it that made them recognize opportunities? What is it that they were able to do with the system that they were in, which somehow others did not see? And I mean, we had a very good example from Chitra, who spoke about Portugal and how, you know, this is a place that nobody would have thought about for the kind of project that she has initiated. So these are the kind of questions that, you know, in conclusion, you may wish to ask, and this is your last chance to ask those questions. So can we have the first question?
I have this question that I need to know. What goes on from here? I've just returned from France,
Yes.
from the consolidate gathering that Aloysius talked about. Now, when we were there, they were talking about Europe and parts of Asia, Europe and parts of US, looking for new opportunities, and they were very interested in this growth in Asia. So I don't know whether you have anything to tell us, but is there any particular area that these guys can be looking into, this part of Asia? They are obviously very interested.
Okay. Ashish, would you like to start?
Well, I can talk about areas that, of my interest. Again, as I said during my, speech, was that, the number of industries are large, in every sector, as I look as an entrepreneur, is that there is an opportunity in everything. For me, for example, we are looking at trying to get into a Chinese manufacturer of larger steam turbines as an EPC contractor, because we feel that there is an intrinsic value in the power play, in the energy play. So we would be very interested, to talk to you guys as to, if you can have, get us access into China. The second part we're looking at is the Chinese manufacturers always do it in bulk, because they're always, as far as I know, and maybe this is a wrong concept, is that they're all funded or they're supported by the government. So whereas I go and buy, castings, for example, for my steam turbines, maybe 5 or 10 in size, I know that Chinese manufacturers buy hundreds of those. So that allows them to basically be able to source components at cheaper rates. So I'll be very interested to see, from the energy side as well as from the contract manufacturing side, to have tie-up in China, which I can then use for my businesses both in India as well as in the United States.
Thank you. Chitra?
I'd just like to, there are two sides here. I think as far as Portuguese companies looking into Asia, there is no doubt that, as far as energy is concerned, petroleum companies and Gulp, for example, or EDP and the renewable energies, they would certainly be looking into China and India to distribute, maybe manufacture. I'm not sure. This is not my area. And unfortunately, Dr. Carlos Moura has had to leave. But I would certainly put you in touch for you to get all the information in terms of industry. In our sector, I know that there are clear synergies. For example, I didn't have time during my presentation to cover everything I wanted, but Banyan Tree, the Singaporean group Banyan Tree, actually is investing in Portugal, and they've done something very interesting. They have brought the spa concept into Portugal, Angsana Spas. The first one has been developed, and in fact, the Portuguese architect that I introduced in my slide as part of the joint venture for our second phase development, he's the one who worked with the Banyan Tree Group to design the first Angsana Spa in the Algarve. But there's a lot of coverage of Ho Kwon Ping in the Portuguese press now, and they are bringing a different kind of hotel and resort to Portugal. I would say that there are also opportunities to look at, there's clearly a lot of more capital in these areas, China and India, and if hotel and resorts in Europe is what the portfolio requires in order to develop a balanced portfolio, then certainly Portugal is a good place to do it. And this is something we are looking at, is to develop a hotel group to acquire underperforming assets, to put together financing to acquire underperforming assets both in Portugal and in England, interestingly, to renovate or create a brand of hotels. So maybe I didn't answer your question directly, but these are the kind of opportunities.
I'll just take the opportunity to tell you that the next conference is actually in Portugal itself.
Oh, fantastic.
Thank you, Ronnie. I think I'd like to add this here. See, though we are in Malaysia having this problem of exporting to Europe because of the taxation part of it, I'll be going off to Colombo on Friday. We are having the one-to-one meet with the President, Raj Bakshi, and the ministers and the body of industrial trade. The reason is Colombo has got the benefit from the European Union to export to European countries without any duties. That's one. In 5 to 10 years' time, Colombo is going to be the next pearl in the Indian Ocean, just like Singapore. They have a lot of natural resources, plus their labor. In addition, they have bilateral business and G2G relationship with India, Maldives, Pakistan, Bangladesh. These are the few countries you can operate from Sri Lanka tax-free totally. The same way you can import something from India into Sri Lanka because of this bilateral trade agreement they have between these countries. They have given a lot of tax incentives. Our company is going there basically to invest and set up this manufacturing plant there to take care of that market plus get into the European market. So this is something maybe of importance to people who are in the industry like manufacturing. That will definitely help all of you.
Thank you. Aloysius, you have anything to add?
Just to add just a little to what everybody has said, I think, as I said, the focus is now in India and China, and I think to a lesser extent, US and Europe businesses are not expanding as quickly, and they're looking at India and China to come into. I think Singapore and possibly even Hong Kong has a valid proposition in terms of being the entry points into both China and India. We are a convenient neutral base, and that I think if we position ourselves that way, being the intermediaries and the mediator between the two, the West and the East, I think we would have a role for ourselves in this 20 to 25 years.
Thank you. Now, before we end, there is, I mean, all of you have heard of the Soros Fund and all those other venture capital funds that have been put together, and since last year, funds have got a very bad name and a very bad reputation. But at the end of the day, it all depends on who are the people behind the funds and what are the kind of investments that they are putting it into. There has been a suggestion, in my presentation earlier, I spoke about the warlords of China who used to open up their chests and ask people to put money into it when they went out to war, so that the spoils of the war could be distributed to the people who supported it. And in a similar fashion, the opening up of China provided opportunities for the overseas Chinese business community to pool their resources and their expertise to go into new projects. Now, there has been a suggestion, because we have been doing this Diaspora Summit for the last 3 years, and each time it is growing bigger. And I'm very pleased that this time around we have had the Chinese business community not just participating, but as delegates to listen, but have also been actively involved in the whole process. And we have now taken this summit to the next level, which goes beyond an Indian Diaspora Summit or a Chinese Diaspora Summit to a Diaspora Summit which brings all the communities together. And one of the suggestions that has come from some of these people is to identify a few good people who can spearhead an investment fund that looks at precisely what Aloysius was talking about, with the two huge markets that are China and India, and the tremendous opportunities that they offer. People who, like for example, Ashish, who has done very well with his investments. Some of them might want to consider teaming up with like-minded Chinese and other entrepreneurs to create a fund that could go into investments into the kind of projects that Aloysius was talking about in China, the kind of projects that Pankaj, our previous speaker, spoke about, and also those that are available in some of the diaspora countries in the region. So perhaps this is something that we can take back as a note to think about and see how we can make it work before we meet again to have our next big diaspora summit. Incidentally, although we have been associated with the Global Entrepreneurs over the years as this diaspora summit, we have now had requests to do this in Malaysia, in Indonesia, the Philippines, and even from the Caribbean. So perhaps the next summit you would all be traveling to some other place to attend the summit. But meanwhile, I will talk to some of these speakers who are here and others who have expressed an interest to see how we can bring a group of people together to look at the setting up of a fund or something similar to that, which could look at investments jointly in India and China. And Dacheng, I think, is ideally placed because they have this leg in China, they have the leg in India, and I don't know how you manage the third leg in Singapore. There must be a third leg that we don't know about. But certainly we would welcome an opportunity to work with you on seeing how we can bring this to fruition. So if there are no last words from any of the speakers present, any last words of advice, caution, hope? I'd like to thank the audience. You know, they say that at the end of a conference, the ones who remain behind are the ones who really have benefited the most. And I think they deserve a round of applause before the speakers. And now, of course, I'm sure you'll agree that we've had such a wonderful panel of speakers from the morning. It's a pity that some of them are not here, but I'd like you to show your appreciation for the speakers who have taken the trouble to come and share their thoughts with us. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I hope the Global Indian Business Network has been able to give you an enjoyable day with meaningful experiences. I'm sorry that I delayed your tea. It should have been at 4 o'clock, but you know, I don't trust you anymore because you go for a break and never come back. So I decided that you can have your break now when it's all over. So I'll conclude this meeting and leave